Hello, everybody, and thank you once again for joining me. 11 kilometers per second, the speed at which something must move to escape Earth's gravity, which means the speed at which you must move to escape the things that hold you down and soar amongst the stars. Okay, I'm fresh off from the gym. I'm feeling good, getting some work done. This is going to be sort of a three-part series, even though they're going to be released at different times. It's on work and different aspects of work, how important it is to get this done. Fresh from the gym, I'm gonna tell you like this: it was a tough day today. I was just tired. I also went out, not late, but like, indulging a little bit of alcohol, and I don't know if that's what it is. Just been becoming the person I want to be, and there's going to be more on that, which means like I'm up at 4 every day, staying consistent, getting a circadian rhythm exactly where it needs to be, and that's an important thing. And so work is what we are talking about, is very important. I'm going to just start off like this. There's a lot of people who are, taking shortcuts, whether it's surgery, going under the knife, or like I heard of something called Ozempic, which allows you to lose weight and all that good stuff. And I mean, when you look good, you feel good. So I'm gonna tell you like that it definitely, you're going to get that feel good, but there's nothing like the feeling of accomplishment that you feel from knowing you did the work. There is a multiplier effect with respect to that, right? Like, you feel proud of yourself. This is what I did. I don't just look good, I also did this. I'm able to do it. Like, you reinforce your own feeling of being able to do stuff, your own feeling of efficacy. And that is just, it's just more than just looking good. It's also, I am good. And that's, again, the kind of thing that we're going to be talking about right now. I wanted to talk about work for multiple reasons. One is, as I said, with 11 kilometers per second, we focus on two of the biggest things that hold us back. There are a lot of big things that hold us back, but two of the biggest ones, fear of judgment from others, is one of the biggest ones. We all need to feel worthy. Excuse me. It is one of the biggest things that is true of social animals. I see it in our dog. Like, they're always like looking for approval. It's what makes them social. It's what makes us social as well. But obviously we have big brains, so not only are we social and can cooperate, we can also do big brains, opposable thumbs, all this other stuff. We can do a lot more than dogs can do. But being social allows you to cooperate, so it actually helps you. But like many of the paradoxes in this life, as it is designed, is for us to figure out how to find that balance, that yin and yang, not the yin yang twins, but the idea is to find that correct balance, and we're going to be talking about some of that as well here. And so here's what we have. Work. Somebody told me after I did the episode, right now feels like the first episode, but I guess it's the first episode of the comeback, the return of the Mac. The first episode I did on, what men have to deal with. I talked about the fear of judgment from others, and someone told me, before I go into that, let me just say the two things. I only said one, fear of judgment from others, and then the other one is addiction to comfort, or aversion to discomfort. I talked a little bit about embracing the feeling of discomfort, of embracing the feeling of not belonging, and talked about how all of these things we put in a bucket of pain. And so work is right along in that same bucket. And so naturally, we're not going to want to do the work. And there's a lot of different things there. But in case there is a person who responded to me saying, you know what, another thing that I feel like, this is a woman, maybe this is something that they saw in, a man in her life, and she said, another thing that men fear is fear of success. And she said it was because, they didn't want the responsibility. Fear of success means more work for them. And so they didn't want that. And so for me, like, as I've always was like, why would anybody fear success? Like, I couldn't reconcile it in my mind. Like, for me, it's not fear of success, it's fear of failure. It's actually the fear of failure. Like, cause you don't want to be judged after you fail. But, I've started to reconsider that in just the way that it's, I guess, named, the nomenclature or whatever, the right word here is. It's like, okay, fear of success for me is like, either fear of responsibility or it's fear of failure, again, disguised as fear of success, which from my perspective is like what people refer to as the imposter syndrome, where the imposter syndrome, from my perspective, is one where you do not believe that you can deliver, right? You think like perhaps you in your mind, you got lucky, right? Or you don't have any idea why these people are giving you these accolades. This is something that I deal with as well. It's like, I don't feel like I've done anything, or at least not of the level that I guess I feel like I should be, because a part of that is a comparing of yourself to those who have been in it a long time, or those who may just have, a certain measure of success that you haven't already. But it's like, all right, well, this is what you should have accomplished. This is what others have accomplished. And so you're comparing yourself. And so you're doubting whether or not you can actually deliver. It's like, I haven't done anything, or, I haven't done enough, or, I got lucky. Like this one thing that you saw and you're like, oh, it seems like you're good at this. It's like, no, not necessarily. I just got lucky. And so now you're like, if I now take on this responsibility that they think I can do, I'm now going to, they're going to see that they were mistaken. And now I'm not as good as I think that I am. And so I think that's part of what's happening. But I also think that, it's also our understanding of work and, again, like I said, naturally we don't want to do the work because it isn't fun, right? By nature, this is why we're calling it work, right? By definition, work is not fun. Let's talk a little bit about what work is, right? Work is activity, right? But there are many activities that, our minds are going to register as fun. Obviously, there's like physical labor. If you haven't gotten accustomed to the work, like, for example, walking is physical labor, right? But a lot of us, for the kind of walking that we can do, unless you're going out and doing like speed walking, like exercise walking, like a lot of us do that every day and we don't consider it work. Before you learn to walk, you had to actually you had to learn it. And it's it seems like something that, you wouldn't consider work. Like, all babies get up and try to do it because they're aiming to go and get something. And from their perspective, it's like that desire to get that thing, whatever it is, overcomes the idea of work, right? But, talking, all the things that we had to learn, in essence, this is what comes with the pain. Like I said, everything that your body is not used to at that moment, that doesn't directly release those neurochemicals that lead to pleasure, is going to be considered work. And so, anything like that is going to be considered work. But some things we have in our minds started to develop as things that either are fun, like sitting there running when you're playing tag or kickball or dodgeball, whatever the case may be. It's still fun. But the truth is that if you didn't attach these sorts of things to it, it would be considered work. And this is the same thing for like mental work, right? Like, there are times when For example, like if I'm making cold calls, this is an example. I'm making cold calls and I'm like, oh my God, this thing is the worst. Whatever it is, that's a tedious job that I don't want to do. And I'm like, I can't do this. And, the minute I stop, like, and what it does is I am like, I'm tired. It drains me of energy. I want to go to sleep and all this good stuff. And then the minute I turn over to like an Instagram, for example, which is also work, right? My mind is working. Or if I start playing online chess because I want to be distracted, which is also work because my mind is working, I no longer feel that, that tired anymore. Now I'm like, this is now fun. It becomes fun. And so what is the difference? I had to ask myself, what is the difference between this kind of activity where it's like, it's not necessarily hard to make phone calls. Obviously there's a mindset around it. Like I will get a lot of folks who are like, dude, why are you calling me, bro? Like, not even as nice as that. And there's that mindset and that understanding. And then there is the other one where, I'm behind this thing. I don't have to really worry about anybody saying no. I could lose, but then it's just me behind this that's losing. And so there's fun associated with it. And I had to ask myself, what's the difference? It's two activities that my mind is engaged in, but one I'm considering fun and the other one is draining me. And so what I decided is that we are designed, our mind is created to have something to pursue, right? Something that is challenging, but figure outable, right? If it's too challenging, like we can't figure it out, then we feel stuck. There is nothing that says we're making progress, right? We're not going into whatever end goal that is. And like I said, this is what the dopamine is all about. It's like, it makes you feel like you're going progress. And progress is ultimately towards pleasure, right? We're motivated by two things, pain and pleasure. And so, there are multiple different things that we have defined in our own heads that gives us pleasure, that releases more dopamine and releases other neurochemicals, right? But ultimately, what our minds, like when we feel like we're moving towards that ultimate idea of pleasure, then we get releases of dopamine hit. So I talked about that in another video. And so what happens is when you are playing like a game like chess or you're on Instagram, it gives you that sense that you're moving towards something. It's solving something. It's giving you, some sort of thing to work towards, the possibility of winning. It's like, okay, I just made a move right there. It looks good. All that good stuff. With Instagram, probably more than anything, it's, the idea of having feelings vicariously through other people because of the things that, whether it's funny stuff, like it's the reason why we love stories, because we get to, experience feelings, experience the world, which is one of the things that we want to do as human beings, as people who are part of this game that we're playing called life. And so that's probably what's going on with Instagram. It's like, okay, we get to have those feelings without necessarily having to go through the difficult things of having to deal with people, for example, of failing and all this stuff. We're behind this screen and it's safe here, whereas I can just live vicariously through other people. And so that activity is not as daunting. But something like cold calls or anything that you do that's like repetitive and boring, and whatever boring is like, is just, your mind does not see anything new happening. It's nothing for it to solve, nothing for it to tell you that, it's getting better. Obviously, if you get a call and somebody hits you up, I mean, you're making a call and somebody is like, yes, I want to do the next step, or I want to buy the whatever it is that you're doing on your cold call. It works, but 9 times out of 10, it's just a whole bunch of calls, right? Like, I mean, just a whole bunch of calls where it's the same. A lot of times nobody's picking up. And then a lot of times, even if when they pick up, they're going to tell you the same thing. Like, nope, not interested. And then you're moving on to the next. And it's just one anxiety filled moment after the next anxiety filled moment. And so that's part of the reason like that activity doesn't work. And so what does that mean for us? Like, you have to find a way to gamify things in your own head whenever it is that you want to make it less problematic. But the truth is, like, sometimes you just got to go through the sludge and the mud, because that's what makes things hard. That's what makes it a game. That's what makes, you know, the boss of each level the boss of each level. Like, why would you play the game if it was all easy? And this is why some people don't get through. This is the thing that holds you back. It's like, you think that you should not have to work to beat the boss, but you have to work to beat the boss if you want to get to the next level, if you want to become the boss. All right. And so this is what I want to first describe: work. But then if you want to become the boss is what, you know, I want to talk about. Like, a lot of times people think that, you know, you get to a level of boss and then you don't work anymore. And I think that's misguided. And it's a misunderstanding about what's actually happening with bosses, right? Yes, bosses probably get to the point where they don't do the repetitive, boring shit anymore. This is essentially what AI is going to be able to do for us, right? It's like, it's going to take a lot of the folks who used to do the repetitive, boring shit, the entry level folks, and is going to put them out of business. But the truth is that, you know, I think this is where the real danger of AI is, when we're talking about moving towards, you know, a society that's like the movie Idiocracy. And we're constantly moving and more increasing at increasing speed towards a society that's like this. Nobody wants to hear facts. Nobody wants to do anything that's hard. Everybody's like, feed me pleasure all day long, you know, drinking Mountain Dew instead of like healthy stuff like water, and watching. And with Charlemagne in the Breakfast Club, we were just talking about you know, Candace Owens' response to Ice Spice's fart. You know, you think you're the shit, you're not even a fart. And it's kind of like his thing was like, in Idiocracy, there was this thing where, you know, people were watching a video just of somebody's ass, and he was, every once in a while it would fart. Like, we're literally getting there. Nobody is alarmed at this. And what AI, I think, is going to do before it takes us out, because I do think that that's a strong possibility as well. But before it takes us out, what it's going to do is create a situation where you don't have people who can become bosses, because you wouldn't have gone through the grunt work and understand the nuances of stuff. Like, in order for you to become a boss, you, I think, have to have got at least an effective boss. A lot of people can become bosses and just be terrible. There is the story of the Howard Hughes, who, if you hear his story in the book by Robert Greene called The Law of Human Nature or something like that, I think that's the name of it. He talks about, and Robert Greene does a great job telling stories. He talks about Howard Hughes, who was like this millionaire or multimillionaire, hundreds of million, maybe even a billion. I don't know. But like he was basically a, you know, somebody who just never really his parents had money. He didn't really have money. He, when his parents died, he basically, you know, used that money to try to, you know, create stuff, and he failed at it. He's kind of like a Trump. And people think that, you know, people have like movies about Howard Hughes right now and showing, like, I know that there is a movie where Leonardo DiCaprio played Howard Hughes, where they were making him look like he was actually good. But like, when you hear how Robert Greene described this man in his life, like, he was a terrible boss. He just, like, he did not know at all what he was doing. He squandered his wealth. And you can get into a situation where you're like that as well, because you don't actually know what the hell is happening. You just have money and power, and you don't actually build anything with it. Same thing with Trump. Like, he actually did not do well if you really know his story. Given what his parents had to bail him out a couple times. His father had to bail him out, like when he bankrupted one of his casinos in Jersey. And so the thing is, like, if you want to become a real good boss, you have to spend the time understanding the nuances. And we're going to talk about that in craftsmanship too. But the thing is that a lot of folks think that, bosses don't work. No, they're doing different kinds of work. And bosses are the ones, like, let's just take this down to a different level. Because, if you're this person who was like, man, people are telling me to do this, but who are you? Like, we don't want to be told what to do, right? That's like we want our autonomy. We want to be able to say, here's, like, who are you to tell me what to do? That's something that's like elemental, like and what I mean by that is or elementary, like, even back in elementary school, like, where people were like, you're not a boss of me. And why is that? Because well, from the minute that we have any kind of understanding, 1-2 years old, somebody is telling us what to do, and they usually are the authority figures, or your mother, your father. And so you're looking up at this boss, and that person is telling you what to do. And you're like, well, I want to be able, like, we model ourselves after folks. Like, who's going to model themselves after the folk who, don't get to tell people what to do, don't do stuff. They're always like the chump who's getting always told what to do. So the idea is we're looking at these folks and like, okay, well, the bosses tell others what to do. So now you're going to come in and tell me to work when I should be the one telling you what to do. But also, it's because you don't understand that the parents are also the ones deciding all the shit. Like, if you need to eat, they have to be the one getting the food. They're responsible for that. They have to be the one getting you education. They got to be the one getting you the clothes. They have, like, bosses, if you really think about it, are the ones that the folks come to. Like, we're talking about the mafia. They come to the bosses, and say, hey, there's been a whole bunch of folks, like, doing, like, they're messing with my business, or somebody is driving too fast on the streets. Or, even when drug dealers get to a certain level, they start doing charity work around the neighborhood, giving stuff away and all that stuff, because bosses are responsible for their constituents. The president works for their constituents. Like, the king should work for his subjects. And if he doesn't, because he doesn't think that he is the boss, the king will get deposed. You get a revolution. You get what happens in France and things of that nature, or you get what happened in the U.S., where it's like, you're not doing enough, you got to go. Dictators get overthrown if they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Now you're going to say, okay, well, there's been a whole bunch of dictators who died in their sleep. Maybe they weren't assassinated, but let's say you're right about that. They still have constituents. It's just not the whole population, right? The constituents that they have are the folks that are powerful enough around them, because no one can do it alone. Like, when there is a coup that happens, it's because some general or someone starts to create a faction of folks who either are disappointed they're not getting enough, and so now they want to take away the person who's on top, because, hey, I am not satisfied with what's happening. So if you're not keeping those people happy, if you're not responsible for what's going on with the people around you, that too will lead to you being thrown out. So every boss has someone that they're responsible for. And so if you don't have that understanding, you're going to think, okay, well, the bosses just come in and they don't do anything. But in fact, bosses have to work. Bosses do different work. Bosses do mind work, or decision making work. And if you don't think that's tough, go from being an employee to being a business owner and tell me that's not tough. All right. The reason why business owners that are successful should get all of the money, all of the equity that they deserve is because nobody has said, here's this structure. Like, for example, when you go to school, they say, here are the things that you should be doing. You go to grade 6, you learn this stuff. The teacher tells you this, that, and the third. And then you come out, you go to work, and they're like, all right, here's the narrow little thing that you need to work on. Here's the infrastructure's already built. We got your HR, we got marketing, we got all this thing doing. Here's your delivery. And then you're the business owner, and you have to come up with all of that. You have to set up the infrastructure. You got to have HR. You got to do marketing. You got to do sales. You got to make decisions on everything that's happening. Okay. And you're telling me that it's not tough. Like, if you think about it, part of the reason why kids can run around with so much energy is because they don't have to make decisions. Like, the mind work, your brain uses 20% or something like that of your energy. I think that's the right number. You can look it up and tell me if I'm wrong, but it's a high number considering how small this freaking thing is, the energy that your body uses. And so, like, what's happening is, you basically are making decisions, and the reason why you can make decisions that are good and not going to go the Howard Hughes route is because you paid your dues, and you have enough experience to know what actually works, as opposed to coming in and guessing at it. You can guess all day, but you're going to make a lot of mistakes until you know what works. And so you're going to spend a lot of your time, energy, and effort and money as a boss if you did not learn. And another thing with respect to work, right? Mark Manson was just did for me now it's just did. And so I'll probably put a clip on that. Okay. Mark Manson just did a little clip that he posted on Instagram where he says, the people are extremely successful. They spend like 10 years, like, with no balance, doing a lot of freaking ridiculous work. And then, they get to the other side and they're like financially independent, financially free. And then they go and start talking about how, you have to find balance, right? Like, everybody needs to find balance.
Rich people, they go through 10 years of grind, failure, suffering, struggle, come out the other end, balance their lives, become very healthy and happy, and then turn around and tell everybody else that they should be balanced, healthy, and happy. And it depends what you're trying to do, right? Like, I think if you are in a more conventional career path, I think there's a lot to be said maybe about work-life balance. If you are doing something entrepreneurial, there seems to be an escape velocity phenomenon where you need an immense amount of force and pressure to get off the ground and to get into orbit. And then once you're in orbit, you can kind of ease off a little bit.
A lot of successful people seem to land at the thing of like, the way to do something consistently is to find a way to make it feel good. And if the thing gives you energy, then you kind of want to do it. You don't just want to scroll TikTok, which is not a thing that really energizes anyone.
So, on the other hand, so there's two mindsets about this, and I have to think about it. On the other hand, Patrick Bet-Davis, he has a thing where he talks about how his father worked all the time and didn't spend the kind of time with him. And, but at the end of it, he had a conversation with his dad and asked his dad, okay, well, what do you feel about that? You never spent time with me. What do you think? And his father's like, this is my job. This is what I was supposed to do for you. And, Patrick is like, all right, well, you know what? I felt the same way. I never felt any way about it. And so his lesson was, as long as you put in the effort to succeed, your kids will look at it and appreciate.
I said, I'm going to tell you a story about my dad. He says, yeah, what's that? I said, when I first had my son, Patrick Tico, he was 6 months old or something like that. And I went to my dad, I said, Dad, when I was living in Iran with you, you would travel, you would work 6 days out of the week. And you would leave 5 a.m. in the morning and you'd come home at 8:30 and you expected us to be in bed by 8 o'clock because your standards, so we wouldn't see you but Fridays. In Iran, Friday was a the Saturday or Sunday of here. I said, and on Sundays, you were an early bird. You'd wake us up at 6. We'd go to Park Shahan Shahi. Then we'd go to church, a Syrian church. Then we'd go to grandma's house, eat her food. Then we'd come back home. You'd take a 2-hour nap. You'd listen to your music with the headphones he would put on with the old music he would listen to. Then he would come back, have dinner, watch a movie, and then we'd go to sleep, right? I said, when I calculate the days you spent with us in 10 years that we lived in Iran together when you and mom were still together, it's 52 days a year times 10, 520 days out of 3,650 days. You had 3,650 days in 10 years, but you only saw us 520 days. Did it bother you? Do you ever regret that as a father? Without any hesitation, I don't know what he's going to tell me. Like, I'm 33 years old and I'm asking him this question. No hesitation. He says, no regrets. I said, Dad, don't tell me this because you're protecting your ego. Do you feel like you regret any of it? Like you wish you would have worked less to spend more time with us? He says, 0. I said, come on, Dad. You can't tell me that. He says, I'm telling you, 0. So now he's getting past. I said, why? He says, what is my job as a father? Isn't my job as a father to teach you and raise you to be strong so you can be independent without having to rely on anybody else? Meaning you can stand on your own 2 feet and you can go out there and take your own family and take care of it. Isn't that the job of a father? Yes. How are you doing? I said, I'm independent. He said, then I did my job right. He says, I don't regret any of it. He says, I enjoyed every minute I had with you guys. I had so much fun with you and Paulette. I said, that's very good to hear because as a man now that I'm getting through the next phase, I like hearing that from my own father. But I said, I want to say something to you as well. He says, what's that? I said, it's crazy that I'm 33 thinking about this. I'm 42 now. When I talked to him about this, I was 33. I said, I'm 33 sitting here thinking about this with you, and I also don't have any regrets that you weren't there. He says, what do you mean? I said, to me, it was the normal thing. Everybody in Iran, you're working. I said, I saw other dads that weren't workers, and sometimes they didn't have money and they were going through challenges. My daddy worked his ass off to provide. How lucky I am to have a father that provided for me. I said, I wanted you to know from me that I also have no guilt for you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me as a father. I love you, and I appreciate your example.
And I think that is actually true. Like for one, like I didn't have the kind of relationship with my dad that I have with my kids. Didn't have that much time. He was always at work, but he definitely, left his imprint on me and and on us. And this is why we were able to succeed. We saw his example for one. We saw how he took care of his kids. And we knew what he was doing for us. And so, like, if ultimately his job was to make us better, I think he did precisely that with what he knew. And he imparted lessons when he had the time to do it. And so, from my perspective, and this is something that I learned late, but I would definitely argue that, you know what, you want to spend a certain amount of time reaching for your potential. It's not this balance thing. It's not it. Like, we are here to reach for our potential. And I think that this is what Patrick Bet Davis was saying, like, giving that example to your children is an important lesson as well. It's like, you are here also to come in and reach for your potential. Why am I saying this in this concept of work, right? The reason is because those folks who have worked their asses off to get to a level where they can have freedom and chill, they get to that level because they've put in the work, right? And so everybody is looking at this whole concept of work and thinking, oh, the bosses don't work. No, the bosses worked to get there. So are you prepared to do the same? Number one. If you are, then you got to work. But I also think that even the bosses, the ones, some of them are gonna be like, well, we find balance, but you have the ability to have balance because you have the money. But even then, now it's not as if they stopped working. Those guys who say find balance, they say find balance. They can find balance because they don't have to pay the bills and do all the other things. They can have other people do like I said, the grunt work, which frees them of time to do what you may also consider work, right? The balance is not balance to go out and necessarily chill. The balance is to do different kind of work with your family, right? Like, spending time with your family is work. It could be considered work, right? Because, you might maybe you might want to do something else, or other things that, finding, I don't know exactly what else you would do with your passion, hanging out with friends, obviously, all this other stuff can be considered work. But the point here is it's like you have to spend some time and energy in that, because now you don't have to worry about paying the bills and all the other things that you don't want to do. You have the money to have somebody else work on it. It's just different kind of work. It's called, quote, balance. It's not necessarily no work at all, because the truth is that, your aim should always be to become the best person. Okay, so this is going to take me to the next level of the conversation, which is about craftsmanship.